Welcome to Deep Dive. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. Let's dive in and grow together.
Welcome to Deep Dive. We're going deep into a book today that it's called Transcendence, My Spiritual Experiences with Pramukh Swamiji.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, have you heard of it?
I have, yeah. It was written by the former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Right, and Professor Arun Tiwari.
Yes.
So it's not just a biography of Pramukh Swami Maharaj, who, for anyone who doesn't know, was the spiritual leader of BAPS.
Right. It really focuses on Dr. Kalam's journey, his personal experiences in connection with Pramukh Swami Maharaj.
Exactly. And, you know, it's not every day that you see a rocket scientist writing about his spiritual transformation.
That's very true.
So, for those who might not be familiar, could you give us a little background on who Pramukh Swami Maharaj was and what BAPS is all about?
Sure. BAPS stands for Bochasanwasi Shri Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha. It's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah.
But it's a global organization rooted in Hindu values, with a big emphasis on community service, harmony, and personal growth through spirituality. Pramukh Swami Maharaj led BAPS for decades, and you can feel the profound connection that Dr. Kalam had with him throughout the book.
It's like, what did Dr. Kalam, this man of science and logic, what did he see in Pramukh Swami Maharaj that drew him in?
Right.
The book really highlights their very first meeting back in 2001
Yeah.
as this kind of turning point.
Yeah, it seems like Dr. Kalam, even with all his success and accomplishments, he always considered himself a spiritual seeker. And this meeting seems to have really had a big impact on him.
Yeah, he describes feeling Pramukh Swami Maharaj's divinity radiating, like being in a higher presence. It's interesting.
It is.
Okay, now I'm trying to put myself in Dr. Kalam's shoes. Like, imagine, I'm a scientist.
Right.
I value reason and logic.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I'm feeling this sense of transcendence.
It must have been a very unique experience.
Right. I mean, it's both unsettling, but also kind of intriguing at the same time.
Definitely. And this seems to have deepened over time for Dr. Kalam.
Yeah, there's a moment in the book in 2005 at the inauguration of the Swaminarayan Akshar in Delhi. Have you seen this?
It's a remarkable structure.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This architectural marvel, it just leaves Dr. Kalam in awe.
Yeah.
And he actually makes a promise to Pramukh Swami Maharaj right then and there.
To write a book.
To write a book about it.
It's amazing.
It's pretty amazing. So it seems like transcendence isn't just about fulfilling that promise, but it's also Dr. Kalam's way of processing this internal shift that he's experiencing. Would you say so?
Absolutely.
So the book is broken down into 4 parts.
Yes.
And the first part jumps right into their conversations.
It does. Deep philosophical exchanges where Pramukh Swami Maharaj really challenges Dr. Kalam's thinking. There's this one instance where Dr. Kalam shares his vision for India 2020, outlining 5 key areas for national transformation. And Pramukh Swami Maharaj, after listening so intently, adds a 6th area, faith in God.
Whoa, okay, so you're telling me he had this whole vision for India.
He did.
And Pramukh Swami Maharaj is like, you're missing one thing.
Very much, yeah.
Faith in God. How did Dr. Kalam react to that?
Well, he was taken aback at first. He's a scientist, and logic is at the forefront of his mind.
Right.
But he recognizes the wisdom in Pramukh Swami Maharaj's words. He realized that Pramukh Swami Maharaj wasn't trying to dismiss the scientific progress. He was trying to add another important dimension.
Yeah.
It's like saying that technology is important, but without a sense of morality or without something greater to believe in, true progress isn't possible.
Right.
It can't be complete.
It's a good point, and it's something that resonates even today. When you think about our world, everything is about rapid advancements, moving fast, breaking things.
There's a sense of urgency that pervades everything.
Yeah. Did any other conversations stand out to you?
Well, there's one where Dr. Kalam asks about connecting with God's consciousness.
Okay.
And Pramukh Swami Maharaj uses this really interesting analogy. He uses gravity. He says, as long as gravity exists, whatever we throw up comes down. Similarly, as long as we're attached to material desires, we're bound to the cycle of life and death.
Oh, wow.
Reduce those desires and you transcend, connecting with the divine.
It's so simple, but it makes you think. Connecting a scientific principle to spiritual growth.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Exactly.
And that's something Dr. Kalam would have connected with.
So essentially he's saying that detachment from worldly desires is the key to spiritual elevation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it's like gravity is this anchor in the physical world, and desire is like the anchor in the spiritual world, which can break free to truly to truly soar.
That's a great way of putting it.
Right.
And this idea, it resonates across many different spiritual traditions, not just Hinduism.
Right.
It really shows how Pramukh Swami Maharaj met Dr. Kalam where he was and tailored his teachings in a way that he could grasp, intellectually.
There's that mutual respect.
Yeah.
It's not about converting him.
It's about guiding him towards his own understanding.
Exactly.
And this is only part one. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it, for this journey of transformation.
It really does. And it leaves you wondering, what else is Dr. Kalam going to discover and experience, and how these early interactions will affect his later experiences?
I'm hooked already. I'm really curious to find out more.
Me too. It's fascinating how this second part kind of shifts gears a little bit.
Yeah.
We've seen Dr. Kalam's personal experiences,
Right.
but now we're looking more at BAPS as an organization.
Yeah, it's one thing to have these deep conversations, like we talked about,
Yeah.
but it's another to actually see how those principles are put into action in the real world. I'm curious what stood out to Dr. Kalam about BAPS's work. What did they actually do?
Well, it's interesting because he doesn't just give us a boring rundown of, facts and figures.
Right.
He highlights some very specific initiatives, like their huge de-addiction campaign. That was a big one.
Okay, de-addiction, that's a massive problem. So what was different about their approach? Was it just about raising awareness?
No, it was a lot more than that. They actually mobilized children, like young kids,
Oh, wow.
to go door to door in their communities and encourage people to give up things like alcohol and tobacco.
That's amazing.
It was a huge success.
So they were getting people to pledge.
To pledge, yeah.
That's really cool. Kids leading that kind of charge for positive change, that's really powerful. It really shows the impact, young people can have.
And it's really about instilling values in them from a young age. If they learn about the importance of living a healthy life, they're more likely to make good choices as they get older.
Makes sense. It's kind of like planting seeds for a better future, right?
Exactly. And another thing that stood out to Dr. Kalam were these family assemblies, or garsabas.
What are those?
So basically, these are regular gatherings where families come together and they discuss spiritual principles, they share their own experiences, and just connect on a deeper level.
Okay, so it's not just about individual growth.
No, it's really about recognizing that the family unit is vital
Right.
for passing on these important values.
And creating a supportive community.
Exactly. And it's something that's so easy to overlook in our busy lives.
Oh, yeah, I know. You get caught up in work, school, social media, all of that.
Yeah.
Just having a dedicated time to have meaningful conversations with your family, that almost sounds radical these days.
Right.
But in a good way.
In a really good way. And then Dr. Kalam also talks about their educational initiatives,
Okay.
which combine both secular education, so the regular academics, with spiritual values.
Well, that's interesting. So it's not just religious instruction.
No, it's about creating well-rounded individuals, people who are knowledgeable but also have a strong moral compass.
Who can contribute to society in a positive way.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach to education. And of course, we can't forget about the Swaminarayan Akshar.
Oh, yeah, we touched upon it earlier.
It's stunning, isn't it?
Incredible.
Yeah.
An architectural masterpiece.
Yeah, but it's more than that. Dr. Kalam sees it as a symbol of India's rich cultural heritage, a beacon to the world.
Yeah, it's not just a beautiful building. It's like this fusion of art, culture, and spirituality all in one place.
And he saw it as a way to transmit those values to future generations, to connect them with their roots and keep those traditions alive.
Yeah, it makes you realize how important our cultural heritage really is in shaping who we are, not just individually, but as a community, as a people.
Absolutely. But it wasn't just focused on India. He also acknowledged their efforts to build mandirs and community centers outside of India, like in the US and the UK, for example, places for the Indian diaspora to come together.
Creating a home away from home for people, a place where they can stay connected to their traditions.
Yeah, and share those values with their new communities as well.
That's pretty special.
Yeah.
So this whole section really shows how committed BAPS is to actually living out their principles. They're not just talking the talk.
Yeah, they're making a difference. And a lot of that goes back to Pramukh Swami Maharaj's leadership. He was a real visionary. He inspired a movement that goes beyond just religion. It's about creating a better world for everyone.
So now I'm even more curious to see what Dr. Kalam has in store for us in the rest of the book.
Me too. It's quite a journey.
Okay, so we followed Dr. Kalam's personal journey and seen how BAPS puts its principles into action. But part 3 of Transcendence, this is where it gets really interesting.
This is my favorite part,
Yeah.
This is where he delves into the intersection of science and spirituality. And as a scientist himself, he was so fascinated by how these two seemingly separate worlds could complement each other.
I have to admit, I tend to think of them as two separate things. Science is about logic, facts, evidence. And spirituality is more about faith, the intangible. So how did he actually connect those two? How did he bridge that gap?
Well, he looks at a lot of different examples of famous scientists throughout history, scientists who really embraced both science and spirituality.
Okay.
Take Pythagoras, for example.
Okay.
The Greek mathematician, right?
Yeah.
Famous for his theorem. But he was also very spiritual. He saw deeper meaning in numbers. He believed they reflected a divine order in the universe.
So it wasn't just about crunching numbers for him. There was a spiritual connection there.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
And then you have someone like Galileo,
Okay.
the father of modern astronomy. He challenged the existing view of the universe, right? But he also saw God's work in all of his observations. His scientific discoveries just fueled his awe and wonder. And you can see that in his writings.
So the more he learned about the universe through science, the more he was drawn to this higher power behind it all.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And of course, you can't talk about science and spirituality without mentioning Einstein.
Right, Einstein.
He talked about this cosmic religious feeling that inspired his scientific pursuits. So he acknowledges that there's something more out there, something beyond what we can measure and observe.
Right, because science can tell us how the universe works, but maybe spirituality is exploring the why.
That's the big question.
Yeah, the purpose of it all. What's the point?
Yeah, and I think both science and spirituality address different kinds of questions. They don't necessarily have to be at odds.
Oh, yeah?
Dr. Kalam saw them as two sides of the same coin, both seeking truth, just through different means.
It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about recognizing that both can give us a more complete understanding.
Absolutely. He also talks about people like Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, who was an Augustinian friar, and Baruch Spinoza, a philosopher who saw God as synonymous with nature itself.
Wow. Okay, so these were people who were able to integrate their scientific inquiry with their faith. It's really cool to see that these figures, I mean, it challenges that image of the purely rational, secular scientist.
Exactly. It really shows that you can have this intellectual curiosity and also this longing for spiritual meaning. The two aren't mutually exclusive.
Right.
And it's not just Western scientists either. He talks about Srinivasa Ramanujan, the brilliant Indian mathematician.
Oh, yeah.
Who credited divine inspiration for his discoveries.
So even in mathematics, he found a connection to the divine.
It's pretty remarkable.
I love that. I love that. Just to kind of show you that there might be these connections out there that we haven't even discovered yet.
And that's the beauty of this book.
Yeah.
It opens our minds to new possibilities. And I think that's really what Dr. Kalam wanted to do.
Part 3 definitely broadened my perspective. I'm really curious to see how he wraps things up in the last part of the book.
Well, the final part looks at creative leadership. He pulls from Pramukh Swami Maharaj's life and teachings and identifies 8 key facets of this kind of leadership: fearlessness, ethical living, compassion, and having a clear vision.
Okay, so these are all qualities that we might think of as being important for spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
But he's saying they are vital for everyone.
For any field. And he gives examples of figures like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama.
Oh, wow.
These are all people who made a huge positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
And he shows how they embodied these principles.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that real leadership isn't about power or authority.
No, it's about service. It's about inspiring others to be better, to strive for something greater.
And he says these qualities can be cultivated by anyone. It's not about being born a leader. It's about choosing to develop those qualities within yourself.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful message. This book has taken us on quite the journey.
It has. We've gone from Dr. Kalam's own personal transformation to this exploration of science and spirituality, and now to leadership. It's all connected.
It is. What's the biggest takeaway for you?
The biggest takeaway for me is that we don't have to limit ourselves to just one way of understanding the world.
Yeah.
We can embrace logic and faith science, and spirituality.
Yeah, we can find meaning in both the tangible and the intangible.
And those pursuits, they don't have to contradict each other. They can actually enrich our lives in so many ways.
Yeah, it's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in a world that often tries to put us in boxes, label us.
And divide us.
This book encourages us to look beyond those limitations.
To seek truth and meaning wherever we can find it.
And to connect with something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a journey worth taking. Thanks for joining me for this incredible deep dive into Transcendence.
It was my pleasure.
It's been an insightful and inspiring conversation.
It has. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those connections that help us understand this amazing universe that we're a part of.